Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lori Jones, president of Fidelis Wealth Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning and welcome back to Fearless Females. I can hardly wait for you to hear the guest today. Her name is Polly, and as many of you know, I am fascinated and just love traveling, seeing new things, different cultures. My kids sometimes do not love that adventurous side of me because they get stuck in Puerto Vallarta trying to navigate streets in a 12-passenger van, which is a super exciting experience I can tell you about one day. But Polly walked around the world. I can't believe it. She started walking and she didn't stop until she had walked the whole world. Her story is so interesting and I can't wait for you to hear. So let's get started. Good morning. We've got Polly Letofsky here with us from My Word Publishing. She's the founder, and I am so grateful to have you here in our program today, Polly. Thank you for making the time for us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Lori.
I'm excited to chat with you. I'd love to hear all about what you do. And I bet you're going to like my first question because I am a reader and I love any and all suggestions. And since you're in publishing, I bet this is a good question for you. What is your favorite book?
Well, it's a fair question. My favorite book, though, honestly, is a business book, so it's not that exciting. But the E-Myth, if you've heard or read about the E-Myth, E-Myth is entrepreneurial myth. And it's the best business book you can have. And that's really the groundwork of how then My Word Publishing scaled. Because otherwise, it's just you in your business all the time and you can't scale it. You can't grow it. So the E-Myth essentially shows you how to do that. And someone recommended it to me in very early days of my business. And there you go.
Oh.
And it's one of those books you want to read over and over again because you're like, oh, I forgot about that. Ooh, I forgot all about, I didn't hear that the first time. And, so it's become somewhat of an obsession. It's the kind now I have in paperback, ebook, and audiobook form and have it on audiobook semi-regularly all year round.
That's great. And it just tells you how to work on your business instead of in your business. Is that
Yeah, it really talks about how to duplicate yourself.
Oh.
And it's really interesting because the first thing they say them after he explains everything is write down every single little thing that you do. Every single little thing you do. And, so the list is this long for, the smallest thing. But then it's easier to, of course, duplicate yourself and train someone to do what you do. Mm-hmm. All right. So one thing they said that sticks with me is the objective to putting together essentially a training manual is that you could pull some stranger off the street and said, here's what I do, hand them magical manual, and they could follow it and do what you do. And I'm like, that clicked with me, man. I was like, I'm on it. I go home and start writing down everything that I do.
I love it. I love that idea. I'm definitely checking that one out because I am at that place where I've got a business and I'm like, I need 3 of me, basically. If I'm going to grow the business and, make it run the way that I want it to, I need about 3 of me. So figuring out how to clone myself is an amazing idea.
Yeah. And we are now at 5 publishing coaches, because that's what I do. I'm a publishing coach, not a writing coach. I'm a publishing coach, and we need writing coaches. But then it comes to me, how do we, let's create a package just for you, a project, because every author, every book, every budget, every vision is different, right? So we got to figure out for that author how we're going to do it customized. And anyway, so we're publishing coaches, and there are 5 of us now. And so if a project comes in, I'm like, you would be best with Brian. And so I'm like a matchmaker, you'd be best with so-and-so. And yeah.
Oh, that's great. So that takes us into the question, tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get where you're at today? Like what brought you here? And kind of a little bit more about like, what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you, but I don't know if you know anything about it, but here goes the story. Try to wrap it up in 3 paragraphs. But I had a dream my whole darn life, since I was 12, to go walk around the world. That's how I wanted to go discover the world someday. I wanted to walk. And so at the age of 37, I got it together and finally left by foot, heading westbound across 22 countries, 4 continents, and it took 5 years. Happened to be over the course of 9/11 and when I was in the Muslim world. So it was quite a journey, and who knew that the timing in the world would be happening while I did that. And on my journey, I left in 1999 when the world was just hearing terms like internet and www dot, we didn't know these terms. And so the word blog didn't exist yet. But along the route, I started keeping journals and then sending them to this one guy, our webmaster, who would then put these stories online. And it started to create a following. And that's how I really learned how to write. And then, so it took me 5 years. Then when I got home, of course, I'm no trust fund baby. I had to get a job and while I wrote the book about it. So I facetiously say, but it is the truth. It took me 5 years to walk around the world and 6 years to write the book about it. So I wrote my book, and then trying to navigate the publishing world where it was, certainly now where it is now, is 2 completely different things. And I started talking to this, a more traditional publishing house. Mm-hmm. Traditional meaning they give you an advance on your royalties, but they own all your rights and final decision making. And there was 2 of them I was talking to, and they both said, well, we like the story, but we need some romance. I'm like, well, there wasn't any.
Like I was walking
it up. And now when I look back, I really think I was doing this on the tail end of the explosion of Eat, Pray, Love,
Oh, yeah.
And Elizabeth Gilbert. So I think that's where their heads were. Oh, you got to have romance. If you're going to be a single woman traveling around the world, this is how it's done. And I had made sort of a promise to myself, and I'm glad I stuck by it. But that was when I sat down to write my book, I thought, I'm going to tell an honest story, whatever that means. That when I looked bad, when I should be embarrassed, when I overreacted or lost my temper or didn't like a culture, and that makes me look bad. And I just promised myself I'd tell an honest story. So when I'm talking to these big traditional houses, I thought, oh, geez, that's not going to land well, Mm-hmm. And they have the right to do it. If they are giving you, they're essentially investing in me. So they have to do what they need to do to get that investment back. That's kind of the bottom line. So self-publishing wasn't great at the time. So I went with this kind of publishing they call hybrid publishing. And it's the worst thing you can do. I tell authors all the time, please don't go that route. Essentially, they have your rights and then you split the royalties. And the problem with a publishing contract is it's forever. There is no exit date. So it's like a marriage where you sign on. I do. There's no exit date unless there are attorneys and money and everything involved. So I signed the contract with this small publisher and learned a lot of very horrible, painful, expensive, dangerous lessons because you're giving up rights. You're giving up your rights. So anyway, I thought, I got an attorney involved and they finally said to me, listen, you got a choice. You can work things out with her or you can run for your life. I'm like, I'll run for my life, please. So, she really could have come after me and sued me. I did break the contract and everything. But what's she going to get? I don't own anything. I have 2 cats. So I decided it's worth it. And then I decided, now what? So I went to a self-publishing class and my world just blew up in the most fabulous ways. This self-publishing was not only the answer to my problem, but it was also this culmination of my skill set and passions, which is the creative field. I'm sort of right-brained and left-brained. You're sort of creative, but you're linear thinking. And, I can reach a deadline where some creative people can't, So it was this perfect blend. And the very beginning, the onset of a new industry that I was seeing had rotten elements of it. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, eventually, I'm going to start a publishing company where the author maintains 100% of all rights and royalties. They will hire us like they'd hire anyone to do anything to manage that project and, help them make the right decisions for them and their goals. And that started November 2012. And to date, we are on the verge of hitting our 1,000th book.
Wow.
So we're going to be celebrating that very shortly. And 5 consultants and 45 editors. And our very first book went on to become a movie at the Hallmark Channel. So I was there at the right time. And it was just the right collision course at the right time.
So this isn't something that you decided to walk around the world at age 12. You did not decide to become a self-publisher or teach people how to publish at the age of 12. Was it something like you went to school, you had a background in it, or you just found your...
I learned through the University of Hard Knocks. Well, I should make t-shirts. You of Hard Knocks. You of HK. Yeah, because I had to, because I didn't want to go the traditional route now, and I didn't want to go this hybrid small publisher route. So I have to do it myself. And so I learned and learned and learned. And I learned as the industry was just at the onset of exploding. So I was there at the right time and learning. And now I look back, let's say 12 to 14 years. Okay. My word publishing's been around for 12, but I was deeply embedded in it a couple of years prior to that. So when you're around something constantly, you learn it. There's no class in self-publishing, So yeah, that's how I learned it. But I was a ferocious reader as a kid, for sure, and then got out of it as you do. Apparently that is a regular sort of statistic, as kids read heavily as their children and through grade school, and they hit high school, college, and then get out of college and get into the busiest part of their life, which is 20s, 30s, and they don't do nearly as much reading. Then they start getting into reading again at 40s, 50s, etc. Isn't that interesting?
That's really sad. My mom always used to say I would go to bed with the book and I would put my covers up over my head with my flashlight so that they couldn't come in and turn off the light and make me go to sleep.
But were you doing that like as you're having kids in your 20s and 30s and you're working and raising kids?
I'll admit it slowed down, but
Yeah.
I'm a voracious reader. So I do read still quite a bit and always have my whole life. In fact, my kids, I threaten to sell them if they don't love reading. I'm like, you're okay, anything else, but if you don't love reading, I'm sorry.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
Well, that is really amazing. What did you, in your walk around the world, and I would love to hear everything I could hear about that, but
here's the book. Oh, lo and behold, it's right here.
Perfect. I'm totally putting that up on our book list because I would love to hear
That's my girl, 3MPH. So here's some lessons I learned, by the way. Don't start your book with a number. All right. Because what do you put the number? Do you start with a THREE? And also no abbreviations, please. So see what I mean? I made all the mistakes. So when some poor author says to me, I was thinking about naming it 6, I said, no. And they go, oh, you're quite passionate about that. Yeah, I learned that lesson.
So give us one insight. What is the favorite, best, most important? What is one thing you learned in that 5 years of walking?
This sounds cliche, but it is so true. And it's something I take with me everywhere. You sort of appreciate the art of going slow, and then eventually you'll get there. Just keep putting that step in front of you. So I know that it sounds rather corny. It's true. It's like I have these little index books, right? And every day I write down 3 things that have propelled me forward. Every day. I've been doing this since God was a boy. All right. I have a bucket full of them. I did them when I was on my walk, and that was 1999 to 2004. And so now I do these in business. 3 things every day that propelled me forward. And I remember sometimes looking at it going, it's 9:00 at night. I'm like, I only have 2 things that propelled me forward today. I got to do something else. So when you ask, what lesson did you have? Boy, I take that with me every day. So the problem is incremental creep, right? So, and that's good or bad. It's good in business and in life, incrementally, itty bitty small steps, incremental steps. You're moving forward, you're moving forward, you're moving forward, but you don't notice it.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, and you look back and you sort of do an autopsy on your I'll call it a debrief instead of an autopsy on your year, you're like, wow, I really did a lot this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that could be bad too. That could be really bad too. It's like, gosh, how did I gain 20 pounds? I eat pretty well, but that bag of chips once a week, I guess, is slowly caught up to me.
Yeah.
So the incremental creep is good and bad. And it's one of the great lessons to watch that and not let it get carried away. So
I love that thought. If there's one thing I am, it's consistent. And I feel like that consistency leads people to count on you, that incrementally always trying to get just a little bit better each day.
Yeah,
but you're right.
You go.
You don't notice it sometimes. You don't notice. It takes looking back and maybe looking through your books of, 3 things each day to say, hey, I am amazing. Man, I've gotten so far this year.
Yeah, I call it give me 3 steps. That's what I call my little index card books.
So if you had to look back on your entire career, what is the best investment you've made in yourself? Is there something you can kind of look at and say, oh, if I hadn't have done that, I would never be where I'm at today?
Well, it's getting the right people around you. So business coach, okay? Business coach for sure, all right? I mean, I'm sure you've heard before that you are the culmination of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And I truly believe that. I've always been pretty good at that. I got to tell you, even in grade school, if I realized someone wasn't good for me, I sort of stopped hanging out with them. Didn't make a scene out of it. I just stopped hanging out with them. I was always pretty good at that. And then, of course, as I got older and you're in business, you got to hang out with the right people. They're encouraging. And it's, again, that incremental creep. So if I'm talking with someone, one of my besties who's in business, and they're having an issue that we talk through for an hour, there's no way that cannot affect me and my decision making. And when I come up with an issue like that, I'm on top of it because I've had a conversation with this person and this person and this person. It's just all the time. And usually make a day out of it. Go hiking, go walking, and hash out an issue. And I have those friends on standby, So.
Yeah. And I do see a great value in surrounding yourself with people. Sometimes you look for traits that you want to develop or get better at that you don't have yet.
Nice. Yeah.
What about, did someone ever give you some really bad advice? Like, what's the worst advice someone gave you? And did you take it?
There's very specific, here's how I think about advice. I can give it, I can take it, all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, people have to respect that nobody knows all the idiosyncrasies of the situation like you do. So if there is a dodgy situation and you're getting all this advice from people and you take it all in, at the end of the day, only I know that personality I'm dealing with, that they will never understand unless they're there. That's why you don't give marriage advice. What the hell is that? You're never going to know the idiosyncrasies of that right situation or raising children stuff. You can say, well, I went through that or blah, blah, blah. And here's what we did. Okay, great. You can take that advice. You can stick it in your little bucket of information, but only you can put that in your situation and know if it's right or not. Okay. So there's no real specific advice that I took or didn't take that I can think of off the top of my head. But I can tell you one of my pet peeves when it comes to advice is when people say, just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. What the hell is that? Right? Don't think about it. I think you do have to sit and think through well, it could go this way. It could go that way. It could go this way. It could go that way. So you're ready. And that's just preparing yourself. I mean, it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out for a friend or colleague to say that, I think.
Yeah.
So don't think about it.
Don't think about it. You're
That's
like all I can think about.
Right. Here's the other advice. Just calm down. When does anyone calm down when someone said calm down?
I'm with you, Polly. That's 100%. I am like, don't tell me to calm down.
I think I'm going to write a book on the stupidest things ever said. All right.
I love it. I actually have a few examples if you're interested, because I've asked that question all the time. So.
All right. I'll start a new social media post. What are the stupidest things ever said to you? Calm down. That'll do it. Okay.
So what about regrets? If you look back over your journey and you kind of see a situation that, you're like, if I could go back and do that, knowing what I know now, I maybe have an idea what your answer would be to this one, but is there a situation that you could say, I would go back and do that differently, knowing what I know now?
I'll bet I think I know. That's brilliant. What you think I would say, but it's not going to be. And that is that I shouldn't have gone with that crazy publisher. Is that right? No, that's not it. Although one could say it's the worst decision I ever made. And there's an equally large argument for saying it's the best thing I ever did, because it led me to this, right?
Yeah,
it's a horrible lesson. It's a lot of ugly lemons making beautiful lemonade. So, but I think regrets come in how to hire people, how to take them on. That whole hiring thing and who's around you. And it's always tricky because you don't really know who people are. But it's tricky because now they're representing my company, my baby, and I cannot expect them to work as hard as me. I can't. Okay, so I accept that. But nonetheless, they have to represent me. So I have to know people better before taking them on and getting them involved in my world.
So you regret not knowing them more before you brought them on?
I regret hiring certain people.
So have you figured out a way to navigate that so that you don't?
It's always a gamble. I really believe it's always a gamble. And frankly, I need someone else right now. And I'm like, no, I can't. That's just such a gamble. It's such a gamble to take someone on.
It is very difficult. And then when you get someone that just isn't the right person, the right good fit, it is very difficult because it's their livelihood and their life, and you're a good person. You want good things for people. That is hard.
Yeah, I will say though, the 5 people that we are now, stunning team. Girl, second to none. I would trust any one of them with my kitties, with my passwords. I would trust any of them. And I just, am grateful every single day for that. But it took me a while to get to this point where, there's an 80-20 rule. Right now I have a 100-0 rule. 100% spot on. I do feel blessed.
You don't want to jinx it, right?
Exactly. It's like, boy, that one bad apple, whole song and dance, that is real. So I have to be very careful.
Yeah. Well, that isn't. I love that you surprised me, because I would have 100% said it was that you wouldn't go with that publisher again. But I can definitely see your point. It may have been the worst decision, but it also may have been the best decision.
For sure. How would I have gotten to this place? I feel blessed every single day. Every day I wake up and feel blessed that, frankly, I had the strength to go on that walk that led me to writing a book, that led me to owning a publishing company. Who can do that bridge? I couldn't have come up with that, scenario for sure, but there's no other way that could have happened. First of all, the position that I'm in right now wouldn't have existed 20 years ago. So yeah, I can't help but feel blessed because, going on a walk around the world, that takes, anyone physically could pretty much do it, right? But it's the mental case of getting up every day in a strange place, walking down a road you've never been, and you have no, you're not seeing a familiar face for 5 years. Okay. And then of course, all the geopolitical swirling around that was going on around the world at that time and still is. But then there's the food and the language and the religions. And so you're navigating all this cultural stuff as well as, of course, the physical and Mother Nature. I tell you. So it takes the mental strength for sure. I forget where I was going with that, but there you go. That's enough.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that really is so interesting. I'm going out and buying your book tomorrow so that I can hear all about it. That I'm a voracious traveler, and the idea of just immersing yourself in different cultures is fascinating. So I'm very interested. If you could go back, Polly, and talk to your younger self, your 20-year-old self, before you ever started down this path and this journey, what's one thing you would tell her?
You know what I would say? I would say, trust your journey. Trust it. And here's what I mean by that. Without going into all the detail, I spent a good portion of my 20s and into my 30s traveling, getting jobs all over the world, sometimes for a day, sometimes 3 months, and then I'd carry on and this whole thing. And as you get further into your 20s and into your 30s, you're like, I really should just kind of go home, get settled, get a job, 401k, IRA, right? This is what I should do. And I remember so clearly, I was sitting on a beach, Bondi Beach, outside Sydney, Australia. I had $17 to my name, not money tucked under the mattress. There wasn't any in the bank. This was $17 in my pocket. Now, I wasn't that stressed because I knew how to go get a job the next day, okay? But I remember sitting there, and it was $20, but I went into a grocery store, and I was like, how can I get the most bang for the buck? Because I got $20 at this point. And I thought, Cheerios, a box of Cheerios, right? That goes a long way, fills you up. So I got a box of Cheerios. So I'm sitting on this beach with my hand in this box of Cheerios, eating the Cheerios. And I'm like, I really should go home and get a job. And then this other voice said to me, trust the journey. Trust it. You're doing okay. You can go and do that anytime. You can go get a job anytime. You are right where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be on this beach with $17 and your hand in a box of Cheerios. This is where you're supposed to be right now. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, when I got into self-publishing and realized this was the perfect culmination of timing and my skill sets and my passion, it's like almost like the world had to catch up to me because it didn't exist when my hand was in that box of Cheerios.
Yeah.
It didn't exist. Technology, this was in the late 80s, early 90s when I was in that portion of my life, just traveling around the world in that subculture. And so when it was time, I was there. And I was there at the exact right time. Self-publishing world was ready to explode right when I needed it. And I did a deep dive and started it. It was the right timing. And so I would say to my 20-year-old self, trust the journey that you are on. And now I look back on those years were hysterical, right? Living on nothing, sleeping on the beach, getting odd jobs. One year I had 60 different jobs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because you're just bouncing around going, yeah, you need some help with that? Sure. How about from 10 to 1? Yeah, I'll be there. Okay, 3 hours. Next job. And so, of course, I feel blessed. And if I'd have gotten nervous saying, oh, I got to go home and get a 401k and an IRA and a mortgage, it was just, I trusted the journey. And I'm so glad that that voice spoke to me when it did with my hand in a box of Cheerios.
Well, and I think if you had gone a different route, maybe you would have been distracted and not ready for the opportunity when it came.
You are so right, girl. You are so right. And you know what? God bless my parents. They never put any pressure on me. Maybe you should come home and get a job. Never even occurred to them. They would laugh. They would laugh at the silly things going on. And so I chose, if you in fact can choose your parents, boy, I did a good job.
So I have a question. Do you ever miss it? Because it's a really transient walking around the world and your hand in a box of Cheerios in Australia. How do you now you've got like a bigger old job and you have to stay put?
Yeah, I do. Do I miss it? No, it had its place in the world. First of all, there was a lot of the vagabond backpack travel living in that subculture, which was fabulous in your 20s and early 30s. Fantastic. That's where you should be in your early 20s and your 30s. Okay. But I did it to death. And then I walked around the world. So I was burned out and the novelty was gone. I mean, gone by the time I was coming around the last straightaway, if you will, on my walk across America to finish in Colorado. The novelty had been gone for the last 2 years. So it was a trek to get up every day, and you're wearing the same clothes. I mean, I wore the same pants every day for a year, girl. And I know I shouldn't brag about that, but it's pretty darn funny right now. Because, you have nothing. I went from, just in a buggy. I was traveling with all my stuff in a little buggy and pushing that along the road. And I remember coming across Kansas. So I had about 2 months of walking left. I was coming across Kansas, Garden City, Kansas. And I was walking around with a map in my hand constantly for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Always had a map in my hand because, of course, I never knew where I was going, right? So I'm sitting in Garden City, Kansas, and I was there for 3 nights, just chilling out and blah, blah, blah. And after 3 nights, I kind of knew my way around the town. I'm like, you know what? I like this town. Maybe I could stay. Maybe I'll just stay here. I heard myself thinking that. Oh, Jesus, I gotta go. I gotta go quick, or I'm gonna just,
or else I will stay, right?
I will stay in Garden City, Kansas, going, I'm done. Like Forrest Gump, he's just like, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. That's funny.
So no, I was very, very done. The novelty was over, and when I finished, I was 42 years old, and so I had been essentially living a vagabondish life at that point since I was probably 22. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't miss it. I have fond memories. I'm so glad that I did it. And there's no other way I could have got that education that I got. So
that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. I would have thought, oh, this is, magical. But yeah, I guess it does. Eventually, you're like, okay, I've done that for a long, long time.
Yeah, I've done that to death. I think if you had gone and ridden your bike across the country and then stopped and gone back to work, you would still have that craving. But my novelty was gone. Yeah, 5 years will do it. And remember, it was 5 years of the walk around the world. There was the previous life of just vagabonding for years. So I was really ready to settle down. Really, really ready. Settle down and have a community and have cats and friends to go to the coffee with on Saturday morning, So,
wear more than one pair of pants?
Yeah, I have a pretty big closet right now.
So I'm super interested in the answer to this question, Polly, but what scared you the most when you started? You sound like nothing scared you.
So. When I started my walk?
Just your journey, just your professional journey, like as you started, and you can take that to like when you started your publishing company maybe, or when you were much younger and you started down the path. Like you answer it however you want.
Okay. Boy, I don't remember being scared of something. Mm-hmm. So I could kind of answer that in a different way too. I'm scared of everything, but do it anyway. I mean, truly.
Fearless.
Yeah, I guess. But my publishing company started, you can start a business by getting investors and starting an enormous debt and doing what you need to do. And I did not start like that. You can just start at ground level and have the ground swell. And that's what I did. So I was never in any debt. I just kind of started and then took on another project and took on another project. And the publishing world too, the publishing business, it's so much intellectual property. Of course, everything's online. So it's not like I needed capital to start. Mm-hmm. So I guess my fear that I still carry with me is I want our authors, I'm not saying this to be politically correct, I genuinely mean it. I want every author to hold that book that they've just created with us and just every time they pick it up, just go, oh, I love you. There's got to be a feeling. They are putting a lot of energy. And to do a book well, to do a good book, because anyone can put out anything today, they really can. So I say the good news is that there's no longer a gatekeeper that can tell you if your content is good enough to get out into the world. But of course, the bad news is that anyone's content can get out in the world. And now you're competing with this pile of obscurity. And how do you rise above that? How do you get to that top of that pile? And you got to start with actually getting a good book. How do you do a good book? You got to get professionals involved, right? A lot of people don't. It's heart crushing for me, but I have to understand that it's a little bit part of the beauty that anyone can put their content into the world. It's just, it doesn't meet my personal standards of doing the best job you can. So it's a little frustrating. I have to work my way through that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I force myself to have respect for that. How's that sound?
Well, I love that. I love that answer where you're like, yeah, I appreciate that this is something that everyone can do. I just don't love that everyone can do, just put all sorts of.
Well, the thing is too, if there is a gauge from crap to fabulous, right? On a book scale, right? You've done this all by yourself because you can do it by yourself. You could publish a book today for free and get it into worldwide distribution. That is an amazing place to be in the world. But we've been around the sun enough times that we know the word free comes at a price, comes at a cost. And the cost is usually skill set or limitations or something like that. So one time, this guy was organizing a big speaking event, and he knew the hat that I wear for speaking about my walk around the world. He doesn't know that I had this publishing hat. So I sit down and meet with him, and he'd just done this book, and he met me at the table and pushed his book across the table and was like, look, my book just came out. He doesn't know this hat that I wear. At a glance, I could tell that this guy was a shortcut taker, that he was sloppy, meaning he didn't get professionals involved. And that was at a glance. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of went in and kind of just went through the pages just like this, not reading anything, had nothing to do with content. And the production of the book was so bad, I could tell who he was. Mm-hmm. So I turned him down for this speaking gig he wanted me to do and headline his event. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know why I turned it down, but I did. But I don't want to get involved with that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So sure enough, frankly, I was right. I followed what. So my point is, if you want a professional book, get professionals involved. Now that his book was a lead generator for business, well, that's not going to bring anyone in. Tear people away.
So what about unique challenges, Polly? Did you face any unique challenges because you were a woman along your journey? It's okay if the answer is no. I'm just interested.
Yeah, the answer is definitely no. In fact, just quite the opposite. I think being a woman really, really helped me.
Okay.
So my story is really how the world came to my aid and put me up almost every single night around the world.
Oh, wow.
All across the world, across Malaysia and Singapore and Thailand and India and Turkey and people putting me up in their homes. Would they have done that if I was some big strapping dude? Now, the men that have walked around the world, of course, they get facial hair. And they better keep that trim and looking good if they want to ask people for help and whatever. Is that fair? No, probably not. But it's, we sort of have to trust our first impressions as well, right? And so I'm short and, at the time about 100 pounds and 5'2" and unassuming, and they felt safe bringing me into their homes with their children. And they would cook for me and they felt protective. So many times I would walk into someone's home, they'd go, give me your laundry. Okay. All the time they were doing my laundry.
That's nice.
And cooking for me and giving me breakfast the next morning and pack a lunch. And here you go as I headed off. So would that have happened if I were a man? I suspect not.
Were you ever worried for your safety?
Yeah, there were some dodgy times. Again, that could have happened being a man as well. I don't think that had anything to do with me being a woman. In fact, the first man that walked around the world was also from Minnesota. That's where I'm from. This was in early 70s. And him and his brother were walking across Afghanistan, where they were attacked and his brother was killed. Okay. So, yeah. That happens with men or women. You can't let your guard down. You can't make stupid decisions, right? It's all about your day-to-day, minute-to-minute decisions. They made a dumb decision. Now, going through Afghanistan was not even an option for me. What was an option was going through Pakistan and Iran. And I was planning on it, making all the contacts. I was ready to go. I was on my way, crossing India. Actually, it happened before India. But 9/11 happened. And then the war in Iraq started rumbling. Hadn't started yet, but it was rumbling. And Pakistan and Iran both closed their borders to American citizens. So that's one of the detours I had to make. So, no harm done, got to tell you. I was like, okay, fine. But no, I think being a woman helped me. It was less, I don't know.
Intimidating or...
I think so. For families, and they were putting me up, and people would come and walk with me. And
Holly, what's the thing you're the most proud of?
I think it's just that I had a vision, and it's very funny. I was in a headspace then when I was planning my walk and then didn't. I was in such a headspace that nothing could get in the way of that vision. Okay. So very, very 2 months into my journey, I was in the Mojave Desert, right? So from Colorado to 2 months, big earthquake hit. Swear to God, it was right underneath me, right? 7.3 earthquake. And it was Joshua Tree National Park. And people were calling me and everything. So are you going to quit? I'm like, quit? Never even occurred to me. Just jump over the crack in the earth and keep going. I mean, that's the kind of headspace you're in, though, is just like, go. And there's constant hurdles, constant hurdles and planning and hurdles and planning and hurdles and planning for 5 years. Doesn't go away. Mm-hmm. But there is a headspace there that I was in. And now I'm not in that headspace. So the thought of, I don't know, someone invites me to North Denver, I'm like, ugh, it's out of my 2 mile square radius here. And it's very funny to think that your comfort zone goes from here, and then slowly that incremental creep, you realize, or you don't even realize, that your comfort zone has gotten so big. I write about this too. I write about it because there was a point right before I left, and I had this nightmare that I was walking alone in the dark in the middle of the night, and I couldn't find a place to stay, so I just had to keep walking. And I was lost, and nobody was around, and the whole thing. So I wake up in this nightmare. Oh my God, where am I? Well, sure enough, that happened. There was a point in Germany where there just wasn't a place to stay. No youth hostel, no campground. They're all full, closed, whatever. And I just kept walking. And now it's the middle of the stinking night, 2 a.m. And there's no lights. And now like some dramatic moment in a movie where my little headlight just went, right? So now I don't even have a headlamp. And so I'm feeling around with my feet for the recreation trail I was on. And by this time, my comfort zone had gotten so big that I just, without even seeing it, I just kind of felt the earth under my feet and tried to pull off the recreation trail. Can't see a darn thing. And just pitched my sleeping bag and slept. And then I woke up a few hours later. I was in the middle of a cornfield. So I get up and I walk out into the next town. There was a McDonald's. It was the most beautiful moment. So I go into the McDonald's and I'm writing in my journal. I was like, hey, wait a minute. This was that dream I had, that I'm walking and there's nowhere to stay and there's no one to help. And it's in the middle of the night. I don't have anywhere to go. And I woke up in a nightmare. And now it was so comfortable for me to just go, I can't see where I am, but what the hell? Just been back in the middle of wherever I am. Right? And so now that I'm done, my comfort zone has come down to, oh, geez, that's so out of my 2 mile radius. I don't know that I can.
I'll walk around the world, but North Denver, that's a hard line right there, right?
Right. It's not my comfort zone anymore.
I love it. That's impressive. So what would you tell a young lady who's just starting down your path? You are so successful. You've had an amazing journey and an amazing career and an amazing business. And it just, I'm sure that it didn't all fall right and everything went perfect, but it feels like this was just how you were meant to be.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone who is just starting down?
I would say you get a business coach and you get a mentor. That's not necessarily the same person, but you get a mentor. And I never had a mentor. I think it's more the thing these days. And it wasn't when I was, way back when I was a child. But it wasn't. You didn't have a mentor. But I am now a mentor to a few people, and I don't hold anything back. Don't hold nothing back. Tell them everything. So I was told one time, and I've passed this on, that if you break your time into 3 different parts, right? And the first third of your time is giving back or helping bring people up from the next generation. You help bring them up, right? You essentially teach and mentor the people coming up. And then there's the third where you are learning from the people that have been where you are. Mm-hmm. So you learn from them. And then that third is you're working in it right now. You're working in it and on it and all that. Sometimes I'll just be cruising around going, okay, it's time for me to get some mentoring because I haven't put enough time into that. And I've put too much time into this third or this third. See what I mean? So that really helps as well, breaking your time into 3 parts.
I like that idea because you do think that, I think of it kind of as a progression. When you're first starting out, you need the mentors, and then you get to the end, you are the mentor. But there's always that piece, no matter what stage you're in, where you can learn from someone else, and you need that. You need people that know more than you do to keep fulfilling your destiny. I love that, Holly.
Keeps you balanced, I think, too.
Well, I have absolutely loved our time together today. Thank you so much for spending this time and taking the opportunity to answer a few questions. If I have listeners who want to get in touch with you and ask you questions, how would they do that?
Well, you can go to mywordpublishing.com and or email me directly at polly@mywordpublishing.com. And there's my book. How You Should Not Title a Book, by the way. The number 3 and MPH. So,
well, I love it. I think that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Lori.